Good morning, welcome back to the Celtic Way. It's Wednesday the 6th of August. I'm Tony Haggerty at Haggerty10 on the Twitter handle, as you all know by now, and I'm delighted to be joined this morning on the briefing by Ryan McGinley at the Ryan McGinley on the X and Twitter handle. Ryan, how are you, sir?
Things are good, yeah. It's been a busy week for me in the morning briefings. I've been on every single one so far, so I'm definitely getting back used to doing more of these shows, but the more practice you get, Tony, the better. Happy to be on this morning with you, Tony. How was your day off yesterday?
Well, you know me, Ryan. Every year I go to the Edinburgh Festival and watch some comedy shows, so I did that yesterday. So it was great. I enjoyed doing that. So, indeed. Now, here we go. Ryan, Celtic officially confirmed Jahmai Simpson-Pusey yesterday. You've been all over that, speaking to experts, and he gave his first interview to Celtic TV as well. So what do we know about 19-year-old Jahmai Simpson-Pusey? He played in the Champions League against Sporting. He played in the EFL Cup against Ange Postecoglou's Tottenham, and he made 6 first-team appearances for Pep Guardiola's side last season. He won the Premier League 2 Player of the Year in Ben Wilkinson's elite development squad. He's Celtic's 7th signing of the season, Ryan. Falls in footsteps of Kieran Tierney, Ross Doon, Benjamin Negrin, Callum Osmond, Hayato Inamura and Shinya Mada. He's going to wear the number 4, which was Gustav Lagerbielke's jersey before his move to Braga. And this is what he said, Ryan, on the first interview that he gave. He said, I had a long conversation with the manager. I liked what he was saying to me about the club, how much he appreciates the club and how much Glasgow appreciates the club. So I felt like I want to go somewhere where if I'm playing, I want to be appreciated. I just felt like Celtic was the best option for me. It's great to be here. It's such a big club. I'm happy to come here, play in front of the fans and play for the team. This is a big opportunity. I want to come here and show my talent and my levels, and it'll be good for me to come and hopefully help the team to win the league again and do well in Europe. And on the kind of player he is, he said, on the ball, I have got composure when I'm passing through the lines. Sounds good, Ryan, doesn't it? On paper, certainly.
Ticking all the boxes, all those metaphorical boxes in my head in terms of what I want from a defender. Quite a, as we were told by the expert last week, quite unfazed by everything, and I felt that way when he was coming across in the interview as well, which was good. I like my defenders, having a wee bit of confidence, but pretty measured in what he was saying, talking about how his defensive idol is John Stones. That's music to my ears personally, Tony, because I think John Stones is one of the best centre-backs, certainly in the last 10, 15 years that England has created. If he's anything near the levels in terms of passing ability and actual defending that John Stones is, if he's been modelling his game off of him, then that's very, very exciting indeed. The fact that he's played alongside him as well and got him as a sort of mentor at Man City is good. I can't think of many better role models to have at this moment in time for Man City while you're in the Man City team than John Stones, a guy who's been there, done it all, and bought the t-shirt.
Yeah, I quite like that. I'm getting kind of Denier vibes, Jason Denier vibes from this, Ryan. He was a young guy that came in, played for a season under Ronnie Dyler alongside Virgil van Dijk, and he was excellent. So I'm hoping that JSP, I think we're calling him now, isn't it? Is that the official kind of name he's been given? I'm hoping
Celtic social media did use that term, so I think I'm going to go with that. GSP and CCV sounds good to me.
Yes, we've got a force there, Ryan, indeed. Yeah,
didn't even mean it.
GSP, I think, well, that's his moniker, certainly. But yeah, I think if he does as well as someone like Denier, I think it'll be a win-win for everybody. But I like the fact that he said he was composed and he likes to play the ball in between the lines, Ryan. He's giving you, he's kind of telling you there, and as you say, if you've been learning from John Stones, then you must have picked up a thing or two along the way. And I don't think in an elite development squad, you don't win the Player of the Year if you've not got some ability. This is him now taking it to the next level. He's had a taste of it with Manchester City, 6 games last season. So now let's see what you can do in a consistent level at a higher up level than the elite development squad.
Yeah, and he was thrown in by Pep Guardiola as well. It's not just any manager that's came and plucked him from the elite development squad. It's, in my opinion, still, I know he had a bad season last season, I still think he's the best manager in the world by a country mile. So he knows a thing or two about defenders. It's actually the area in which Man City have spent the most money over the past, since Pep Guardiola's appointment, particularly in the fullback areas, but also in defence too. You know, they've brought in the likes of Aymeric Laporte, Ruben Diaz, Josko Vardiol. So the fact that he was getting in ahead of these players, Manuel Akanji, Nathan Ake, so the fact that he was actually picked to be in that defence over some of these players, I know there was some injuries, is a massive vote of confidence for Jahmai Simpson-Pusey. And if you can do that for Man City, and I know it was a difficult time that he came into the Manchester City squad, if you can do that for Man City, then he can certainly do it for Celtic. I was reading the statement that Man City put out when they announced that Simpson-Pusey was going to Celtic. I think the two words that were used were technical and commanding in defence. Again, much like the John Stones remark, that's music to my ears, because I want a defender to be able to not just defend. That's their first thing. That's what they'll be judged on most at Celtic, particularly in the Champions League when they're coming up against elite attackers, elite opposition. But I also want to see them be technical. I want to see them play the ball out from the back. And if Simpson-Pusey can do that, then there's no reason why he can't be a success at Celtic, because he seems to have all of the tools required to be a success at Celtic for this year coming.
Well, you mentioned the word commanding. Brendan Rodgers is very big on certain words about his defenders. I'm going to read this, what Brendan Rodgers said about him. He said, "I'm really pleased we've been able to bring Jahmai to Celtic, and I believe he'll be an important quality addition to our squad. Jahmai is a quick, dominant centre-half. He's a strong defender, but he can also move the ball forward very well as he progresses through the pitch. I know Jahmai is excited about this move, and bringing him to the club creates even more competition, which will only benefit us. I am sure he will settle in well with the squad as we get ready for the matches we have coming up at home and abroad." Dominant was a word that leapt out at me there, Ryan. Brendan Rodgers says all the time, and he mentioned it on Sunday again, your centre-halves have to be dominant. I like that. And if Man City are using the word commanding, I feel quite settled with that, Ryan. I've still to see him.
Yeah.
The eye test, people can say, I'll form my judgment when I see him in action, but I don't think he's coming up here to sit on the bench, Ryan. I think he's coming up here to play, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's in the team starting 11 on Sunday.
Manchester City are known, and I've made this point before in previous morning briefings when Simpson-Pusey was getting linked to the club, or when he was essentially signed but not confirmed. Manchester City don't send their players out on loan just for the sake of it. There is a team behind the team that decides where these players go. They look at fits, they look at how this player can affect a team going in, positively affect a team going into it on loan. And if they're not guaranteed game time, then quite simply put, they don't get sent to the clubs. I've seen a couple of their elite development squad going to different places. Some are going out on loan to Girona, a couple are going out to championship teams. Simpson-Pusey's obviously been earmarked by both Brendan Rodgers and Pep Guardiola as being an ideal Celtic player for the coming season. So that's pretty positive for me. And I also think it's reassuring that somebody like Pep Guardiola can trust Brendan Rodgers with a player's development over the next season. Because as much as Brendan Rodgers is an elite level manager, in my opinion, Pep Guardiola is the next level. And if he sees that for the player, for his development, then I'm all for it. I think it's a pretty solid signing. Without seeing too much of him on the pitch, you'll maybe get the first glimpse of him on Sunday at Pittodrie, Tony.
Yes, indeed. For those asking why we started at 9:40 today, we've got an engagement at Hampden. Just after this briefing, we'll be shooting to Hampden straight after this to talk to none other than ex-Celtic manager Martin O'Neill. So that's why we're a wee bit earlier today. The time frame was pretty tight if we'd have started at 10. So hopefully that clarifies it up. It's not our normal starting briefing time. We just felt that we would start early so we could get to that occasion that's happening at Hampden today. So hopefully that's explained that. Now, Ryan, I was just thinking, you were saying that there about JSP. That means on Sunday, if JSP plays, we could have a back four of AJ, JSP, CCV and KT. we'll keep that on the QT. You see what happens, eh?
Keep it on the DL.
Yeah, indeed. Would that make them VIPs and all that kind of stuff? Yes, indeed.
Maybe.
Indeed. But no, I think glad to get that one over the line, Ryan, get it announced and let him have a few days training and see if he can put himself in, the manager's eye. I would have no qualms about playing him from the start, although most people would say that Celtic's best player last week was Liam Scales. So has he got the yellow jersey, as I like to, that phrase which I also like to use?
I think either option is good, to be honest. The only problem that I have now within the team is that where does Austin Trusty fit in all of this for a £5.5 million signing last season to now suddenly have another player to be competing with in the defence? Now, that's not a complaint, because I want Celtic to be as strong as they can in the centre-back area. I want them to be as deep as they can, with Dane Murray in there as well, looking to break into the first team. I just feel as if with Austin Trusty being bought for 5.5 million, there will be an assumption that he's to play first team football. Now, could that be elsewhere away from Celtic Park between now and the end of the window? I'm not sure. We'll need to see how this development, how the centre back area develops over the next month or so. But from the outside looking in, you're looking at Austin Trusty's position. You're looking at the fact that Liam Scales started over him, and now Simpson-Pusey's in there alongside Cameron Carter-Vickers. It doesn't look that great for him optics-wise, so it's up to him to change that. And if not, then he may be assessing his options elsewhere, unfortunately, because I quite like the big guy.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair comment. And as you mentioned as well, there's Dane Murray trying to push as well. You could see one or two of those guys heading out on loan. The window's still got a few weeks to run. We'll see it. And also on the 14th, Celtic will have a transfer deadline and they'll have to submit the squad list and stuff like that, won't they? So we shall see what happens with that. But transfer latest, Ryan, but I think we've still got lots of positions that ideally we'd want to fill. A centre forward and a winger for me is imperative, Ryan, before this August the 14th deadline. I don't know about yourself, your thoughts on that, but that's certainly they're uppermost in my mind, Ryan.
As a keen viewer of Scottish football, I watched the other teams in Scottish football ply their trade. I watched Rangers last night against Victoria Pilsen, who got a really good result at home against Victoria Pilsen. Not so sure about the opposition. They weren't great on the night, but they still get that 3-0 win. And listen, you're in the Champions League qualifiers. Puts them in a commanding lead ahead of the second leg. 24 hours before that, I watched Hearts against Aberdeen, and I watched their wing players, in particular Claudio Braga, who might have one of the best new songs in Scottish football, to the tune of Radio Gaga by Queen. Between that and the subs that came on for Hearts, and also the Australian winger whose name escapes me, is it Milenkovic or something like that, that played for Aberdeen. He looks like a bit of an upgrade to what they had last season. They also brought on Shaden Morris, who was a bit of a live wire in the Scottish Cup final. So I'm watching these three teams last night, and they all look as if they've strengthened in those wide areas, particularly Rangers with Ant-Man and Gassama. And I look at Celtic and what they've done, or what they've failed to do in this window so far, which is bringing any wing attacking talent. I know Shin Yamada's came through the door, but he's still a bit of an unknown quantity. Wingers are going to be the difference for Celtic between them getting into the Champions League or not, in my opinion. I watched it last night. If you've got width in the team, then you're going to hurt the opposition. I know people might disagree with me in terms of watching Rangers and that, but I think it's important to see what other teams are doing in the league. I see improvements being made in the wide positions, and I just think that Celtic need to do the same, if not better, because they can't be gambling with this Champions League qualifier. I understand why they want to spend money after the fact that they've got the money in with the Champions League. They've got that guaranteed, but they've got to get there. And at the moment, I'm a little bit doubtful with the players that they've got out wide that can effectively play 4-3-3 for Celtic. But that's just my opinion, Tony.
Yeah, there's jeopardy in this tie, regardless of the opposition that who prevails, Kairat or Slovan Bratislava. There's jeopardy at the moment unless Celtic do something about that before August the 14th. But you mentioned those clubs, Ryan, Rangers, Hearts and Aberdeen. And
I'm glad to see people in the comments are agreeing with me with what I was saying, and people are taking a keen eye to what everybody else is doing.
common denominator there, Ryan, is the width. That's the one thing that leaps out to you in when you watch these clubs. They've invested in wingers, somebody, players who will be creative, not only score goals but create goals. Kasama's had a decent start, get all that.
Very
So
decent.
you've got to be mindful of that, right? And you look at Celtic, and obviously Jota's injured, that's a real blow. But their starting wingers are Yang and Forrest. And, that leaves a lot to be desired my in my thinking. I think if Celtic do not sign a winger before August the 14th, that's a dereliction of duty, Ryan. And I think the Celtic fans deserve better. They're not entitled, but I think they deserve better from those running the club to, give this manager the tools to compete in this Champions League qualifier. I've been saying it since before the Scottish Cup final. The most important games that Celtic will play is this double-header, two-legged qualifier. And I can't for the life of me understand why we're now, 8 days away from that deadline where you have to register some players or sign some players, and Celtic haven't brought in a winger and a centre-forward. I'm bracing myself for a week of hectic activity, I hope, but I don't think you can hedge your bets that way and say, we'll wait to see if we get there. Make sure you get there. Take the jeopardy out of it altogether.
But that was the financial. There was a comment made by Peter Lawwell a couple of years ago that really irked a lot of people, and it kind of miffed me as well, to be honest. He was talking about how Celtic are in a great financial situation to be able to deal with not qualifying for the Champions League and dropping down into the Europa League. For me personally, I don't know about you, Tony, that just should not be in Celtic's psyche whatsoever. It should be a given that Celtic are qualifying for the Champions League. I'm not saying that because I expect them to do so, but it's got to be the mantra going into these games that Celtic are a Champions League club, and they've got to be making that next stage. I don't want the club planning business wise to be, solid financially, because at the end of the day, we don't see that on the pitch. It's numbers on a spreadsheet or on a end of year. AGM, an end of year meeting. We only see what we see on the pitch, and right now, I think that Celtic are a Daisen Maeda injury away from, a bit of a catastrophe in the forward areas. When you look at Forrest, Yang, Forrest did really well at the weekend. Still massive question marks over Adam Ida through the middle. Shin Yamada's an unknown quantity. Daisen Maeda's holding those other two positions up at the moment in terms of, I would say, real first team quality starter. So I think those other two positions have got to be addressed. And they've got to be addressed before that 14th of August deadline. Otherwise, Celtic are gambling with the most important fixture of their season.
I think just when you hear, as you say, that comment and stuff like that, that's what irks you as a supporter. That I think there are times when Celtic, and I use this word, masquerade as a Champions League club, and their ambition is Europa League. Celtic are not a Europa League club, Ryan. They are a Champions League club. They should think big, they should act big, and I always say that about Celtic. But there are just times when they don't. And this was one of those times to act like a big club and capitalise on everything that you did last season in that elite club competition, because everybody enjoyed it so much. And with 8 days to go and Celtic not bringing in a new striker and a winger, as I said, I think it's a gross dereliction of duty. We shall see what happens. Given 8 days, if those players come in, then we shall reconvene on that. But I just think the Celtic supporters just feel that that's the bare minimum that the club should have already achieved in this transfer window for this manager.
Yeah, and it's a weird one, Tony, because Celtic have brought in 7 signings this summer, and that feels like a lot, and it's a big number, 7. You're thinking that'll be wholesale changes to the first team. But out of those signings, who's immediately going to make an impact apart from Kieran Tierney, who is essentially a January signing? He was brought in, he was signed on a pre-contract in January. We've known remember you and I were in Birmingham when the news broke that Kieran Tierney was joining in the summer. They tried to bring him in January, obviously to no avail because of Arsenal, but we knew that he was coming in since January. Apart from him, you've got Inamura, who looked good, but apparently he didn't get on the bench at the weekend. Benjamin Egrin that started, who I think is going to be a really good player for Celtic. But apart from that, Simpson-Pusey's now an example of a player that can come in and immediately make the grade, you would hope, because he's coming on loan from Manchester City. But you look at the other signings, Callum Osborne didn't make the bench either at the weekend. It's 7 signings, but at the same time it's not really, because they're not all first team players. They're not all immediately going to make an impact. And then you've got the unknown quantity in Shin Yamada. It'd be nice to have something to speak of him, but he didn't come off the bench at the weekend. So all these little storylines and all these moves and transfers and players not playing, I think they just add to the frustration, to be honest, because you hear players getting announced, they get the whole first interview with the club, the press conference, and then they don't get played in the first game of the season. So you've heard about them all, but you've not actually seen them ply their trade for Celtic. I think that's where the frustration comes from, at least from myself, Tony.
It's also very telling that the manager keeps banging on about the fact that the club haven't replaced Kyogo or Kuhn. He's mentioned that 2 or 3 times. And I guess, and then he also mentioned maybe he wasn't making the point strongly enough to those upstairs. I mean, how much more can you make that point? But we shall see. As I say, there is 8 days in the window, in terms of this Champions League qualifier. There are more days left in the window to sign players as well.
Yeah, Tony, just on that point that you made, that Brendan Rodgers is talking about how he needs to convince the board to sign players, that's the alarm bells go off when stuff like that is said, because they've got a recruitment team. They've got Paul Tisdale, who's the head of football operations at Celtic. They've also got the hierarchy in Michael Nicholson, Peter Lawwell, Chris Mackay, etc. All of these guys who have been around the block at Celtic. It's not as if they're new appointments apart from Tisdale, even though he's got a season under his belt now at Celtic. They've all done this before. They've all seen what happens when Celtic sign players ahead of deadlines, and they've also seen what happens when they don't sign players ahead of deadlines. Surely that previous burn that they've got is still there. They can still feel that. But it seems as if they go into a sort of reverse and they treat every transfer window the same, which is really quite baffling to me. The business should be done. That is the long and short of it, Tony. And the fact that it's 8 days to go until the registration, I'm not exactly sure on if they can bring in more players as emergency players before the deadline, those 24 hours before the game players. I'll need to double check that before officially confirming it. But it seems as that even then, 8 days to go, that's hardly any time to acclimatise to your surroundings. Then again, I say that Oliver Atman signed for Rangers 2 days ago, and he was assisting them yesterday. So it just shows you good players can immediately acclimatise.
You just left feeling eat, sleep, Champions League, no signings, repeat, isn't it? It's just, that's the way you feel about it.
Don't know if I like that new Calvin Harris song, Tony.
Don't like it either myself, but it's just the way those upstairs make you feel, and the manager's trying to tell you that as well. And yeah, there are alarm bells when the manager says stuff like that. I totally agree with that. I just think it's not a good look, is it, for Celtic? Now, another thing, Ryan, that came out yesterday in the news was that Celtic decided not to postpone their SPFL home fixture against Livingston on Saturday, August the 23rd, regardless of who they're going to face in the Champions League qualifier. Are you on board with that being a wise move, or would you have rather they postponed that game?
I think it all really depends on the players that are at the club when that game comes around. But I'm on the pretense that Celtic have signed new players, then I'm all for it, because it gives them another 90 minutes to acclimatise to their new surroundings. But that's me hoping that Celtic have brought in new players by that point, particularly new wingers and a new forward.
Yes,
we'll see if I get my transfer wish, to be honest. But I'm fine with that, because it's a home game. I think if it was an away game, if it was say for example it was the reverse fixture and it was at Livingston Stadium, I think they would have called it off because of the plastic pitch. Despite despite Livingston now having seemingly a better surface to play on, still a plastic pitch, but more akin to the ones that likes of Falkirk and Kilmarnock have, which is a bit of a better standard, at least in terms of plastic pitches. Looking forward to seeing the back of them at the end of the season, to be perfectly honest with you, but that's a different story. If it was on a plastic pitch, then I've got no doubts that they would have tried to postpone this game, but the fact it's on a good surface, one of the better surfaces in the league at Celtic Park, I don't see there being any problem with that game being on. I actually welcome it. I want Celtic to keep on building ahead of steam, and the fact that Rangers and Hibs have both chosen to postpone their games means that Celtic can get a head start in the league and really get points on the board. Still have to go and win the game, but it's points on the board if you get the 3 points.
I'm in total agreement. Had that been in West Lothian, that game would have been called off.
Not without a doubt. As it should be, to be honest with you.
I think Celtic feel that they can build up ahead of steam and they can take care of Livingston at home. But again, they have to go and win that football match. They made tricky work of it on Sunday against St Mirren. So I'm no two ways about it. Livingston will come and play the same way. But yeah, I agree with that. I'm glad that Celtic didn't take that opportunity to postpone that match. And that day, it's all about going out and getting 3 points on the board, Ryan. As you say, building up that head of steam. It's early in the season. Players should be fit enough, and hopefully you will have some new personnel to showcase that day as well. Go out and do the business. And as you say, take advantage of the fact that European rivals, Rangers and Hibernian, have chosen to postpone their respective matches. So that's all you can do. But yeah, I was when that news filtered through yesterday, I thought that was a wise and sensible decision for Celtic, and nothing will dissuade me from that thinking.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. I think momentum is such a key word in football. Yes. It's not just a cliche. I think it's a key word in terms of getting those points on the board, getting players comfortable with each other. It's another chance for Benjamin Negrin to play a home game. There was a moment that I really enjoyed on Saturday. Actually, one of the better moments of the game in the first half, when Celtic were about to take a corner, just in front of the St Mirren fans, the away fans, and Benjamin Negrin signalled to the supporters to get G'd up, to make some noise. You know, I like that from a player. You know, to put himself about, not just physically, but conversationally and the dialogue with the supporters. I really like to see that, Tony. And despite him fading away in the second half a little bit, I've got no doubts that he'll play a massive role for Celtic this season. Once he's fully acclimatised, I think he's going to be one hell of a player for Celtic.
Yeah, I think it was a quietish debut for Negrin, wasn't it?
He started really well, and the thing is, it
was a brilliant shot, brilliant save, and I think if that goes in, he grows in confidence and takes the game by the scruff of the neck. But I've no qualms about Negrin, as you say, becoming a vital player for Celtic this season.
Yeah, no doubt about his quality, and I like that his confidence is already shown. I just think he runs with the ball really, really nicely. When he dribbles with the ball at his feet, the ball tends to stick. It doesn't go too far ahead, but he can build ahead of steam. He can build up his speed, and you can see why he's played as a right winger on occasion as well, because he does have that turn of pace. If he can bring that into the midfield, then I think that's going to be a very, very useful weapon to utilise this season.
Yeah, without a doubt. I'm looking forward to seeing what Benjamin Negrin brings to the party. An impressive pre-season, quietish first match against St Mirren, but he flitted in and out. But when he flitted in, he was excellent. He was very good, and certainly a lot more to come. A lot more in his locker. I'm hopeful that we see Jahmai Simpson-Pusey this weekend, Ryan. I'll beat Pittodrie, so I'll do the Sky player cam. I'll be fixated on him if he does start. He was hoping. But yeah, Celtic confirm Jahmai Simpson-Pusey. He's in. They won't be postponing the Livingston game on Saturday, August the 23rd. And Ryan, we await that elusive striker and winger coming into the club. We can only wait. There's 8 days before that August the 14th Champions League deadline. Are we going to get them, Ryan?
There's still time, but they're cutting it fine, is what I'll say.
Guys, we'll leave it there. Thank you for joining us. Over 600 people joining us in a live stream phenomenal numbers. We really
On an
appreciate
earlier show as well. Cheers, guys.
Yeah, an earlier show, we are shooting off to go and speak to the blessed Martin O'Neill, see what he's got to say about all things Celtic. But thank you for joining us. You know what to do. Hit that subscribe button if you enjoy what we do. And you'll find us all on all the social media platforms, Ryan, yeah?
Yep, absolutely. www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe on the website, and just hit that subscribe button on the YouTube.
Thanks for your company. We'll do it all again tomorrow. It'll be 10 o'clock tomorrow, guys. As I say, we've got an engagement now to head to. So take care. Have a wonderful day. Speak soon.
Cheers, guys.